morning. How are you? So today we're going to continue from our last topic about market forces, which mainly we talked and discussed about supply and demand, about the definition of supply, definition of demand, definition of equilibrium price, definition of equilibrium demand, and the very definition of the equilibrium itself. And today we're going to continue the topic towards another important topic, which is supply, demand, and government policies. In last week's chapter, we didn't discuss anything about government's policies. We only talk about the market as it is. We're only talking about what happens in the market when the supply increases, what will happen in the market when the price decreases, etc. But today we're going to put another contributing factor in the market besides supply and demand from the producers and the consumers, and it is a new variable that is called a government policies. So, in a free or in unregulated market system, market forces establish equilibrium prices and exchange quantities. So when there is a market out there in the world, like black market or what any other kind of market, that no other regulators actually regulates the system, then that specific market will be called a free market. And a free market doesn't have any system whatsoever, doesn't have any regulators that regulate the system. So the prices that is created in that market is actually purely from demand, purely from supply, and purely from the influence of the sellers. And that kind of condition and situation is not the most efficient ever, or it's not the most efficient possible. Therefore, there's a need of regulations, a need of policies from the legal regulators, which is the government. So we can't let any market to just flow naturally without any system, without any law there. So we need something strong to enforce the sellers not to abuse their positions, and we need someone strong to influence the buyers not to control the price too much, because there is no such thing as mutual satisfaction in the market. Sometimes the sellers is benefiting more from their activities, but sometimes the buyer is benefiting more from the transactions, because there is no such thing and there is no true event that everyone is actually satisfied. And the role of economists, or in this case is regulators, and in this case, for example, is the government, is to use their theories to assist in the development of policies. So the government here, or for example Indonesia, Kemendagri or Kemenko, their role is to control the prices. And the policymakers in the country or in Indonesia actually believe that someday or in some time or in some point, the price that exists in the market is quite unfair, either to the buyer or either to the seller. And when the situation actually happens, then the government will intersect or will intervene in the market by controlling the prices. Here we have the examples in the real world how the government actually control the prices. First, we have the term price ceiling, and the second we have the term price floor. So price ceiling is a legal maximum of the price at which a good can be sold. So the government actually put out the maximum price that the seller can hold the price for any good that they sell it. And the price floor is the amount of the price or the minimum amount of price that in which a good can be sold. So first we're talking about price ceiling. So price ceiling is like harga maksimum tertinggi maybe ya di Indonesia. So the price ceiling is not binding if it is set above the equilibrium price. So last week we have talked and discussed about equilibrium or equilibrium price, which is the price where it is the most efficient price in the market right now, because it is when the supply actually meets the demand. And when the price ceiling that is being enforced by the government is set above the equilibrium price, then it doesn't matter to the seller, and it does not put any seller at risk of facing any kerugian gitu ya. I forgot the term in English. So we can see the figure 1 here. We can see there is a market with price ceiling. We have two blue curves, which is the first blue curve is a supply curve. The second blue curve we have a demand curve, and we have the third orange curve, which is a price ceiling. So when the government actually enforce maximum price above the equilibrium price, then the seller will feel at ease, and it doesn't matter for them whatsoever, because in whichever point they will sell their price above the equilibrium, they will still earn a profit. So it doesn't matter for them. It does not binding. It does not making them at the disadvantage here. But when the government actually put a price ceiling that is lower or below the equilibrium level or equilibrium price level, then the seller is actually at disadvantage here, and he actually loses face and lose here gitu ya. Why? Because they can't sell any price more than $2 here. The sellers cannot sell any price above the orange line or the price ceiling. But we know from this curve, we know from this graph or this figure that the actual equilibrium level of price is at $3, but the government want the sellers to sell in maximum $2, so they will lose $1 for each product that they sell. Seperti itu ya. And actually this kind of policy made by the government, which is a price ceiling, can actually create a shortage in products. It can actually create a shortage in the goods that are being sold in the country. In USA, we have example in 1970s, which is actually influenced by OPEC at the time. And at that time in 1970s there is a gasoline shortage. But in Indonesia, we know that from February 2022 this year, February, March, April, May, June, and maybe July, we can see that there are a lot of shortage of any kind of cooking oil in the country. Maybe you have remembered that from several months earlier we have a lot of shortage of Bimoli or Sanko or Filma or Tropical or whatever kind of cooking oil out there, especially from palm cooking oil, from palm tree cooking oil. So why that kind of shortages actually happened? So a lot of people in the country, in Indonesia especially, or Indonesian netizens specifically, actually formed a lot of conspiracy theories that maybe the government is behind this. Maybe the government actually hoard the cooking oils all for themselves and hold all the products in some mysterious area and purposely not sell or purposely not release the product to the citizen to buy. Therefore the price increases, but that's not true. So that's completely hoax. So the reason why there is a shortage of cooking oil earlier this year, yeah, is because there is a change in price ceiling of cooking oil in the country. So in Indonesia, we have HET or HET or harga eceran tertinggi. So in Indonesia, HET or harga eceran tertinggi is a price ceiling in which the government actually enforces a maximum price of oil that can be sold in Indonesia, and not just oil. It's for all essential food products such as cooking oil, such as rice, especially rice, the sugar, etc. And actually, in last month, yeah, in September 2022, the government of Indonesia also released a change in harga eceran tertinggi in terms of rice prices. So the rice prices right now, yeah, nowadays, we have the maximum prices of harga eceran tertinggi in Jawa Islands and every island surrounding Java Island in about 12,300, I believe, and in another island that is far from Java, such as Papua or Sulawesi or Maluku, yeah, the price of rice in harga eceran tertinggi or in HET is around 9,000 to 10,000 rupiah. So HET or harga eceran tertinggi or price ceilings in Indonesia, price ceilings policy in Indonesia is enforced based on geography. So it is very geographically based policy, yeah. So if the place or if the island is closer to the mainland or to the main island in Indonesia, with Java, then the price will increase significantly. But when the island of people is further and further away, then from the mainland or from the main island in Indonesia, like Papua or Maluku or like East Flores and whatever else, yeah, then the price will keep lower and lower and lower. And next, after price ceilings policy, we have price floors policy. Price floors policy actually work opposite of price ceilings policy. When we're talking about price ceilings policy, then we're talking about how the government actually enforce a maximum price, yeah, for the goods, or any kind of goods and services to be sold in the country. But when we are talking about price floors policy, then it is about a minimum price of goods that can be sold in the country. And we can have two scenarios of this policy. First, the price floor that is not binding, and the second scenario is the price floor that is binding. It can be seen through this figure. When the minimum set of price that is released by the government is actually set below the equilibrium price, then the seller is not at risk of loss here. They are not at any kind of disadvantage here because they can sell their product in any number above the price floor here, and they can still gain benefits. They can sell at $3, which is the equilibrium price. They can sell more than the equilibrium price, like in $4 maybe. But in the second scenario, when the government actually enforce the price floor above the equilibrium price in $3, which is they set the price floor in $4, which is $1 more than the equilibrium price, then the sellers are at risk of loss here. The sellers are at a disadvantage here because they can't sell any legally. They can't sell any of their products below $4. They have to sell their products more than $4. So they have to sell their products like $5 or 4.5 or 6, etc. But we know that when the price of goods are increasing, we know that there are several customers that will move towards other kind of brand or other kind of substitution good gitu ya, or complementary good. So how price floors affect market outcomes? A price floor prevents supply and demand from moving towards the equilibrium price and quantity. When the market price hits the floor, it can fall no further. When the market price equals the floor price. So maybe we are kind of curious why actually the government do this kind of thing, yeah? Why actually the government have to enforce price floors? Why they have to set a minimum set of price for safer or certain goods or products in the market? Because they want to protect the price of that specific food or that specific product not to fall further below the line of price for price. So like they want to ensure that the price of that specific product that they put a price floor to does not fall further below that price. So it's actually a good decision, yeah, that the government do in order to protect the price of specific products. And the example of price floor is minimum wage. We know that in Indonesia there is a minimum wage. We know that in USA, in any other countries in the world right now, there is a minimum wage policy. In Indonesia, we have UMK ya, upah minimum kota, and we have UMR, upah minimum regional, which UMK is based in city location and UMR is based in province, I believe. And the minimum, why the government actually put minimum wage out there, yeah, because they want to protect the worker, they want to protect the labor, they want to protect people who work in Indonesia not to have their wage fall below the minimum wage. They acknowledge that in order for us Indonesians to live properly in the country, we have to pay for a lot of bills. We have to pay for food bills, gas, electricity, housing bill, etc. And in order for us to fulfill all of those bills and to pay all of our expenses, living daily expenses, yeah, we have to have a certain amount of wage, and we can't have anything lower or below that specific amount of wage. So in order to ensure that we can, all of Indonesians that work in the country can have that quality of life, yeah. So the government put minimum wage in order for companies to not pay us a lower or fewer than that amount. We have figure 5, and here we can see how the minimum wage actually affects the labor market. Here we can see that there is an equilibrium of wage, and the minimum wage actually set above the equilibrium. So the equilibrium is the point where the supply and demand meet. It does not mean that that point is the best point ever. Like when we're talking about equilibrium in wage in Indonesia, maybe it's like 1.5 million, maybe it's 2 million, we don't know for sure. But that amount of wage that is actually in equilibrium wage does not represent the best wage for us Indonesian to have. We can have a 1.5 million, yeah, we can have 1 million rupiah, and maybe that amount is actually the equilibrium price when price meets demand, when demand meets supply. But that is not the best wage for us, right? We can live just by 1 million rupiah per month if we have family, we have kids, we have house to pay, and etc. So the government think ahead of that, and they like disregard the equilibrium price, and they put the minimum level of the wage in the country despite it being far ahead or far above the equilibrium of wage price. And that is a good thing, noted. And now we're talking about the last thing or the last example in government policies, that is taxes. So what's taxes? I believe you have heard and maybe you have paid for it, like unconsciously in your daily life. So taxes are the amount of rupiah or number or cost that the government puts to in every kind of sector or several sectors in the country that they have to pay to the government. And sometimes we know that taxes sometimes can be burden for us as taxpayers, us as in consumers and us as in producers, because we have to pay more than we actually should have yet. And taxes can be discouraging for market activity. It can put a lot of burden in production of factor or in factor production or in cost of production. And when a good is taxed, the quantity sold is smaller. So when suppose there is a farmer, maybe they sell tobacco. When they sell tobacco, tobacco is like one product that the government specifically put tax on it. So because there is a tax on their product, then the seller or the producer will sell respectively lower or fewer, or the amount of quantities that is sold is effectively smaller than before, because that good is taxed. Why? Because when a good is taxed, then the price of the good will increase rather more than the usual price that they usually have. So the buyer will think twice to buy it, and the number of goods sold will decrease. And taxes are the burden of all taxpayers, not just buyers and not just sellers. So the buyers and the sellers here actually share the tax burden. And the last topic that I'm going to talk here is about elasticity and tax incidence. Tax incidence is the manner in which the burden of a tax is shared among participants in market. So, when we're talking about taxpayer, we're not talking about people who work in the labor force. We're not talking about people who have a job and have to pay tax from their wage, deducted from their wage, or as everything else, etc. But we're talking about taxpayers. We're actually talking about everyone, because almost every goods that are sold in the market actually has some little amount of tax in there. So the sellers, in order to avoid like a significant increase in cost of production due to tax, they share the burden with the buyers by like putting a several amount of tax in their products. Like suppose we have ice cream, and the ice cream is usually sold at 5,000 rupiah. Like maybe popular ice cream popular was which is sold at like 4,500 or 5,000 rupiah, and it is usually sold at that price. But when the government increases the tax price for that specific good, which is ice cream, then naturally the price will increase, right? And why the price will increase? Because the seller does not want to buy that increase of tax in production alone. They want to share the burden. So the initial price of the ice cream is 5,000, and the government increases the price like 1,000 per good, but the seller wants to share the burden with the buyer, so they will increase their product or their ice cream from 5,000 to 5,500. So the seller will pay tax half, and the buyer will pay the tax half. So the 1,000 tax will be paid by the seller 500 and by the buyer 500 rupiah. It is called the tax incidence. So, at last, yeah, we can summarize our meeting today. The summary of our meeting today is about price controls in the nation or in the country by the policymakers, or in this situation is the government. So we know that in any kind of market that is legally run gitu ya, we have to have regulators there, and the best regulators ever in the market is the government, because they are fair, because they don't like have any favoritism gitu ya, supposedly not have any favoritism in the market. So the government give several policy in the market in order to ensure that the best outcome possible is actually being held in the market, such as the best price for the goods, several specific goods, such as essential daily life goods gitu ya, and they want to ensure like the quality of life of citizens by ensuring their wage does not fall below the price floors that they enforce. And we know the taxes are used to raise revenue for public purposes. Sometimes maybe we wonder, yeah, what taxes are actually for, what goods are taxes are actually big, yeah, for us. So taxes, not just some random money that we have to pay to the government or to the country, but taxes are actually for the country to put the best service to us. Yeah, the government is actually our service workers. They service to us. So in order for them to be able to service to us the best, so they have to have money for it. So they ask money for us to give that money back to us in any other kind of form gitu ya. And last, a tax on a good place, a tax on a good is actually can be shared the burden by the sellers, and they can transfer the burden or share gitu ya, the burden to the buyers, and we call that tax incidence. Maybe this is all for today's topic. If you have any question, you can message me directly, or you can ask in the group chat, and whatever you find fit. Yeah, you can email me directly, etc. You know where to find me. Thank you for today's class. See you in middle exam. Don't worry, mid exam is next week. So see you there, and make sure you finish all the exams, yeah? And have a good day.